Позвоните Аню Науменко. Она здесь сейчас хочет сказать важные слова.
Спасибо.
Анечка, умничка, не стесняйся, говори. Мы с тобой, мы рядом.
Спасибо дяде Юре за то, что он меня, мою сестру и сотни тысяч детей спас с Мариуполя. Я чуть-чуть
Анют.
Welcome to Red Watch TV, your vigilant observer of authoritarian regimes around the world. Today we look towards a historical and present-day issue of concern, the manipulation of educational systems for propaganda purposes, a practice that is unfortunately not a new phenomenon. In Soviet times, schools played a significant role in state propaganda, with education systems geared to instill a certain worldview, promoting communist ideology, and shaping the future citizens to align with the Soviet regime's perspectives. Propaganda was deeply embedded in all aspects of Soviet schooling, from textbooks that lauded the achievements of the USSR to history lessons that painted a skewed version of world events. The ultimate goal was to create an obedient populace that unquestioningly supported the government and its ideology. A striking aspect of this was the promotion of the notion of us against them, a tactic employed to evoke a sense of national pride and loyalty, while also sowing seeds of mistrust towards the West. Fast forward to the present day, and there seems to be a disturbing resurgence of similar strategies within the Russian education system. With the onset of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, an eerie echo of the past can be felt as the government once again appears to be utilizing schools as a platform for promoting state-approved narratives. Since the beginning of Russia's aggression towards Ukraine, an unsettling shift has been observed in the content disseminated within Russian schools. From September 1st, an additional weekly lesson called Talking About the Important was introduced, serving as a platform for teachers to discuss the goals of the war in Ukraine with children. This seemingly innocuous addition to the curriculum appears to be a well-orchestrated part of the Kremlin's broader strategy of shaping public opinion and garnering support for its actions in Ukraine. The Kremlin has gone so far as to inject symbols of war into classroom activities, a clear testament to the government's attempt to normalize the conflict and foster unquestioning patriotism. The letter Z, which is featured prominently on Russia's military equipment in Ukraine and has become an emblem of support back home, is now becoming a part of classroom lessons. Images of elementary school students forming this symbol are a sobering representation of the extent of the government's manipulation of the education system. In classrooms stretching from the country's urban centers to its rural fringes, images and posts have begun to flood Russian social media showing school children, some as young as kindergartners, attending patriotic lessons. These children are being guided to pose for pictures, forming Z and V for victory signs, symbols that are loaded with implications of the ongoing conflict. But the indoctrination goes beyond symbolic gestures. Education Minister Sergei Kravtsov openly described schools as central to Moscow's fight to win the information and psychological war against the West. Under this banner, a series of government-produced lessons, such as Defenders of Peace, have been rolled out, echoing Putin's justifications for the Ukraine invasion. This re-engineering of education serves a dual purpose: to ensure the younger generation is brought up under a cloud of state-sponsored narratives, and to stifle any voices of dissent, effectively molding a generation of Kremlin supporters. The underlying battle beneath this wave of patriotic education in Russia is what the country's education minister, Sergei Kravtsov, has described as the need to win the information and psychological war against the West. As part of this, the Russian authorities have been implementing stricter control over the dissemination of information within the country, particularly relating to the war in Ukraine. One of the stark examples of this control is the introduction of laws against spreading fake news or discrediting the Russian armed forces. Such legislation not only challenges the freedom of press, but also nudges journalists and activists towards self-censorship, or even encourages them to leave Russia. Major Western platforms, which could have been a source of alternative perspectives, such as Instagram and Facebook, have been banned, leading people to resort to virtual private networks, VPNs, to bypass the blocks. In response, Russian authorities further tightened their grip by blocking more than 20 of the most popular VPN services, thereby attempting to contain the spread of alternate narratives. The country's internet regulator, Roskomnadzor, has demanded media outlets to erase reports using the words invasion or war, and to rely solely on official government sources, which only refer to the Ukraine war as a special operation. This has resulted in the removal of all entertainment shows from Russian state TV, replaced by propaganda-filled talk shows and state-vetted news. This consolidation of information control has a significant role in shaping public opinion. The government's narrative, unchallenged by dissenting voices, feeds directly into the education system, influencing children and young adults. For instance, on March 3rd, over 5 million children across Russia were reported to have watched an online lesson called Defenders of Peace, part of a government-produced series for mandatory lessons in schools. These lessons are carefully crafted to push Putin's historical revisionist speeches justifying the Ukraine invasion. In such a way, the Russian authorities have been directing the narrative of the war in Ukraine, in a bid to shape nationalistic sentiments among the younger generations and foster support for the government's actions. By controlling both the dissemination and intake of information, the state is laying the groundwork for a population supportive of its actions, regardless of international law or global opinion. In a world where digital connectivity has democratized information, Russia is making significant strides in controlling what its citizens see, hear, and believe. It has cracked down heavily on dissent, passing laws against spreading fake news or discrediting the Russian armed forces. This has led to many journalists, activists, and opposition figures fleeing the country or facing severe penalties. Russia's internet regulator, Roskomnadzor, has tightened the grip on information dissemination, ordering media outlets to delete reports using the words invasion or war, compelling them to rely solely on official government sources which refer to the Ukraine conflict as a special operation. This heavy-handed media regulation and censorship extend to the classroom too. Educational materials obtained by the Dossier Center reveal attempts to shift the blame for attacks on residential areas in Kharkiv, with assertions like, high-precision Russian weapons only strike military targets and don't hit civilians. These materials urge children to trust only official sources, including websites of the Russian Defense Ministry, Putin, and state-run media. As the tide of propaganda surges, there are individuals who courageously refuse to be swept away. Parents, teachers, and students alike are raising their voices against the political indoctrination and manipulation that's infiltrating Russian classrooms. One such instance is of Igor Kostin from the Krasnodar area. Upon learning that his daughter was to participate in an event celebrating the annexation of Crimea, he cited laws on education prohibiting politics in the classroom and refused to let her attend. His resistance led to a significant portion of the class abstaining from the event, a quiet yet potent act of defiance. Similarly, Cameron Manfly, a 28-year-old geography teacher from Moscow, refused to conduct patriotic lessons in his class, boldly choosing to maintain his personal stance rather than echo the state propaganda. His outspoken objection led to his termination, marking the professional cost of resistance. Manfly's case underscores the climate of fear within educational institutions, with teachers either afraid to speak out or supportive of the state narrative. These educational alterations bear significant implications, not just for Russia, but potentially for the international community. The Russian educational system's forceful imposition of propaganda molds young people into supporters of the Kremlin regime, potentially giving rise to a generation of spokespersons for the regime and disruptors of global informational space. Moreover, the emotional and psychological consequences on the children cannot be underestimated. By weaponizing education to justify war, children are being taught to view conflict through a narrow, biased lens. It plants seeds of nationalism that can grow into unyielding support for the state, irrespective of the state's actions or their global implications. While the immediate impacts of these propaganda efforts are evident, their long-term ramifications are yet to be fully understood. It's crucial to continue monitoring the situation and challenging the narratives being propagated. As we close our examination of this issue, we invite your perspectives. What long-term effects do you think such propaganda might have on Russia's younger generation and their view of the world? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Red Watch TV. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons below, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
21 век настал, шар земной от войн устал. Население шара гегемон достал.
Предание официально
В
выделено.
Евросоюзе мнения нет. Ближний Восток стонет ответ. За океаном лишен власти президент. А нам от северных морей до южных рубежей, от Курильских островов до Балтийских берегов, а на земле все был бы мир. Но если главный командир позовет последний бой, дядя Вова, мы с тобой. А что достанется тому поколению моему? Дашь слабинку, потеряем всю страну. А наши верные друзья — это флот и армия. Память дружбы, деда красная звезда. А нам от северных морей до южных рубежей, от Курильских островов до Балтийских берегов, а на земле все был бы мир. Но если главный командир позовет последний бой, дядя Вова, мы с тобой. Гряда самураем никогда. Грудью встанем за столицу янтаря. Севастополь наш и Крым для потомков сохраним. В гавань Родины Аляску возвратим. От северных морей до южных рубежей, от Курильских островов до Балтийских берегов, а на земле все был бы мир.